to our 7th plenary session for Ensure Justice 2021 being crushed. Our partners at the Orange County Department of Education are providing Spanish interpretation for this session. So please listen to these brief instructions about accessing the live Spanish translation.
Thank you, Sandy. Good afternoon. My name is Natalia Barca. I'm interpreter for the Orange County Department of Education. So today I'm working with my colleague, Jorge Ibarra, and we're going to give you some quick tips on how to log into the interpreting channel. So for computer users, please click on the glove at the bottom right of your screen and select English as soon as the interpretation feature is enabled by the host. Then please click on Spanish. If you are using a mobile device, please tap on the 3 dots more and select language interpretation. Select English and tap done. The interpretation feature is not available in Chromebooks or in older computers. I'm going to give the message in Spanish. Good afternoon, muy buenas tardes. Mi nombre es Natalia Barca, soy intérprete del Departamento de Educación del Condado de Orange. El día de hoy estoy trabajando con mi colega Jorge Ibarra. Si desea servicios de interpretación, por favor, en el momento que el anfitrión de la reunión prenda la herramienta de interpretación, usted va a ver un globo terráqueo en la parte inferior de su pantalla. Por favor, haga clic en la parte de español. Si está utilizando un dispositivo móvil, ya sea un iPhone o un Android, por favor, usted va a encontrar 3 puntos en la parte derecha. Aplaste allí y va a ver que dice interpretación, canal de interpretación, aplaste el que diga español. Thank you, Sandy. We're good to go.
All right. I am very excited to introduce today's panelists. The first question, though, we used the term CSEC in the title, Keeping Our Kids Safe, What Caretakers, whether your parents, grandparents, aunties, uncles, older siblings, neighbors, what you need to know to prevent commercial sexual exploitation of children. And our panel is comprised of 3 experts, Ruthie Hanchett, Alicia Zayas, and Brian Clavicilla. And I just want you to know who these folks are. I don't want to take too much time introducing them, but Ruthie is adjunct professor here at Vanguard University. She's the Live to Free Club coach. If you haven't invited Live to Free to your middle school or your high school, they even do Zoom presentations for students. So think about that. She has been teaching our freshman anti-human trafficking class for 3 years, and we're so excited about that. She has also worked in the past in global issues for UN Human Rights Committee on the Rights of the Child, UN Girls Education Initiative, and the NGO Advisory Council on Violence Against Children. And on March 16th, her Live to Free team is presenting a parallel event during the Commission on the Status of Women at the UN. So I'm really proud, yay. I'm going to do all of the bios right now because I don't want to break the chain once they start presenting. Alicia Zayas is a Vanguard alum, and she has been working in the field of anti-trafficking for more than a decade. She started under the Orange County Human Trafficking Task Force. She has a master's degree in social work, and she started the CSEC, now you all know what it means, work at Tulare County Child Welfare, developed their CSEC steering committee, a multi-county collaborative, provided training, and was a CSEC clinician. She received the 2016 Diamond Award for Young Leadership from the Global Center for Women and Justice and 2017 Young Alumni Award from Vanguard University. She is currently a behavioral health therapist working with inner city youth in Bakersfield, California, and is also an adjunct professor here. Brian Clavicilla is a senior deputy district attorney with the Orange County District Attorney's Sexual Assault Unit, primarily prosecuting perpetrators of serious and violent crimes against children. Before that, he gained extensive training and experience on the Human Trafficking and Exploitation Unit seeking justice in the courts for commercially sexually exploited victims. With a view from the legal trenches in the battle against sexual exploitation of vulnerable people, Brian seeks to share his perspective, arm people with knowledge to prevent and detect sexual exploitation in their personal and professional lives. So we will start now, and I believe, Ruthie, you're first.
Yeah, I am, and I'm going to share a screen so we can have some slides as we speak. And thanks, Sandy, for introducing. I just want everybody to know that everyone on this panel, we are also parents. So we are experts. This is the work we do. We are committing our professional careers to this work. We also, it's very personal to us too. I have an 8 and a 9-year-old little girls. So what I want to do is I get to start the conversation by focusing on what we need to do to teach our children in order to empower them. So it's not about placing a burden on them or putting too much pressure on them, but really seeing them as partners in their own protection, recognizing that they have this evolving capacity and agency and power, and we can work together as parents to protect them and even their peers. So I get to start by focusing on those earliest years, from birth to the preteen years. That's where my kids are, and build how we build that foundation of empowered kids and parents in order to prevent sexual abuse and exploitation. And if this topic is hard or scary, and I know that for some of us, it may be triggering of previous abuse, I want to just say, let's take a deep breath, okay? And as Brene Brown says, we're going to try to stay awkward, brave, and kind, and we can do this. So we today are focused on child sexual abuse prevention at a human trafficking conference because child abuse prevention, well, first of all, child abuse is an epidemic that has lifelong consequences. But second of all, these topics are very much related. The statistics on child sexual abuse are staggering. We estimate that about 1 in 10 children will experience sexual abuse before the age of 18. And most of that abuse happens from someone that they know and trust, someone that the family knows and trusts. So whether it's a family member, a relative, a family friend, mom's boyfriend, a coach, or even an older child, because up to 40% of the abusers are minors themselves. These are people that we trust and someone who should have protected the child, but instead harms them. So it's not the stranger danger, creepy guy in the white van who kidnaps kids from parks or Target that we were warned about when I was a kid growing up. While that may happen, it's not statistically typical, and it's not what we need to be most teaching our kids to be careful of. Children actually may not immediately fear the abuser. They may trust them. They may not seek to run away, especially if that perpetrator convinces them or works to convince them that it's an expression of love and to keep that secret. So children oftentimes feel great shame and guilt about the way they're manipulated, even by people that they did trust, and that keeps them from seeking help. So it's never too early for us as parents and caregivers and people in children's lives to start working on protecting our children and empowering them to know about and help to prevent sexual abuse. And as we do that, we are also preventing human trafficking, because there's a clear connection here between child sexual abuse and sex trafficking especially. We know the studies show us that up to 90% of sex trafficking victims experience sexual abuse or incest as children. Rachel Lloyd, who founded Girls Education and Mentoring Services and is also a survivor herself, talks about this continuum from child sexual abuse to commercial sexual exploitation of children. And I know Nicole showed that chart to us just briefly yesterday, but it's this continuum from linking love and affection and sexual abuse and violation of boundaries and power dynamics that eventually leads to this conclusion of getting paid for what feels familiar. But I want to remind us that this connection, this process towards sexual exploitation is not inevitable. Children absolutely can heal. They are resilient, and this step can be avoided. But we also want to do our best to prevent it from happening in the first place. So child sexual abuse prevention is human trafficking prevention, and we are all responsible for protecting all of our children. Now, I want to say very clearly that it is the responsibility of adults. It is the parents, the caregivers, the teachers, the coaches, the church leaders, community members, elected officials. Adults are responsible to keep kids safe and create protective environments around them that build their positive assets, that create safety nets around them, and also hold abusers accountable. We need to put those protective structures in place for children. And at the same time, children can be empowered to be partners in this process. We can work together with them to keep them safe. So it's this balance between being careful not to put too much responsibility on children, especially to protect themselves against a skilled pedophile, for that is too big a burden to put on a child. But we can include them as part of the team. We know we cannot be there 100% of the time in real life or online. So we need to empower our kids to know their rights, to know the boundaries, and have confidence to speak up if they are violated. So as adults, it is our responsibility first to educate ourselves, to learn about grooming techniques, to learn the signs of child sexual abuse, to learn what to do if a child discloses to us that they have experienced any grooming process or abuse. And then we need to act and respond when children disclose. We need to believe our kids and act upon that information immediately. We need to have those hard conversations. We need to be awkward with our kids and with other adults, and even be okay with being that crazy lady who's always talking about private parts and child protection, right? We need to be uncomfortable for our kids' sake. We need to really take seriously child protection policy. So that means we talk about this with other adults in our kids' lives. You know, if we go to check out a new church, we ask to see their child protection policy. And then we follow up to make sure it's actually implemented. We talk about it with our babysitters. We talk about it with relatives, with our kids' schools. And these signal to the other adults in our children's lives that someone is watching, and they're less likely to have access to or try to hurt a child that has that safety net around them. Because protecting a child from abuse and standing up to a predator is worth feeling awkward and uncomfortable. It's worth the risk of being wrong. It's worth upsetting people. It's worth losing a friendship or a romantic relationship. It's worth breaking up a church, and it's worth breaking up a marriage. Because our kids need to know that their safety is our #1 priority. And then once we've done our work of learning about these issues and educating other adults, we need to educate our kids to know about body safety and about boundaries. So we protect and empower our kids when we teach them about body safety from the very beginning. Educating kids does not spoil their innocence, and if it's done in developmentally appropriate ways, it actually protects it. It's our job to empower our kids with information that is accurate, not scary, so they can be allies and partners in this team that is protecting them. And it's never too early to start laying that foundation. So from the very beginning, when we're changing diapers or bath time together, we need to talk about our bodies without shame. Our kids need to know that nothing is unmentionable. So kids also need to know about their private parts and their anatomically correct names. So no wee-wees or vajayjays, right? We call them by their correct names. They need to be told explicitly that they are the bosses of their bodies. So let me demonstrate. This looks a little bit like this. So if I'm the mama, I say to my child, my love, I want to talk about your private parts because I want you to be kept safe. Your private parts are the parts of your body that are covered by your bathing suit. That's your bottom. And for boys, it's your penis. And for girls, it's your vulva and your vagina. And we all have private parts, and we also have the right to privacy. That means that no one is allowed to look, touch, or take pictures of your private parts or the inside of your mouth. Now, other people have privacy too. So we don't look at, take pictures, look at pictures, or touch anyone else's private parts. And if anyone ever does try to do this, you have my permission to yell no and do your best to get away. But if you can't, or if anything ever happens, you can always come to mommy right away. I will always believe you. I will always work to protect you, and it is never your fault, and you will never get in trouble. So kids need to know, that's the end of my little talk to my child, right? But kids need to know and explain that they will never get in trouble. It is never their fault, and we adults will always believe and support them. We need to explain to our kids the difference between secrets, which make us feel uncomfortable and alone, and surprises, which are happy and always come out at the end, like a birthday present. And when we do this, we are teaching our kids life lessons about consent from the very beginning, that people should ask to touch, to kiss, to hug our children. And they need to practice exercising that muscle, right? So we set the rules, and then we give them choices. And we can say things like, pick a way to say goodbye to grandpa. And we don't undermine that with comments like, oh, let's give grandpa a kiss. You don't want to hurt his feelings, or anything that reinforces a message that we do what adults ask, even if it's uncomfortable or feels wrong. Because we want to teach our kids to listen to their body's warning signs. If they feel uncomfortable, if they have upset stomach, if their heart is racing and they are nervous or sweaty, those are their body's warning signs. And we want kids to listen to their bodies and ask for what they need, to trust their gut. Now, I know it's hard to stand up for yourself. We know that as adults sometimes, right? So kids need to know that they also have a team of trusted adults who believe in them and will help them. It's important that our kids can articulate, for young kids, we say 5 trusted adults. That's their safety network that they can go to if they experience any kind of grooming, abuse, early warning signs, or even just a problem that they cannot handle on their own. And 5 is a great number because we have 5 fingers, right? So it's easy for little ones to identify who their 5 people are. And if they go to one and they don't listen or believe them or help, they go to the next. They need to know that message. And we as adults, well, first of all, kids should not be in other children's safety network. But sometimes kids do disclose to one another. So if our kids know their body safety boundaries and their 5 trusted adults, if a child does disclose to them, they can then tell their safety network, and we can support and help that child that needs it. So as adults, we want to be on the safety team of not just our own kids, but other kids in the community, especially those that are most vulnerable, by investing in them and building relationships so that each kid has lots of connections of safe adults. Finally, the topic I want to cover before I finish this piece is about pornography. Now, we all know that access to porn is now inundated. Even when we're not seeking it out or trying to find it, it can find us. And we know that in this pandemic, our kids are on tablets all day, school from home, and even toddlers have access to their parents' phones quite often. So we have to talk to our kids about pornography. Small children typically view pornography for the first time by accident. They click on a link, they Google a search, it comes out wrong. The average age that we expect children to be seeing pornography online right now is about 11, but that is trending down. And this is shaping the way our kids view, it's not just romantic love making pornography. It's misogynistic, it's violent. It shapes the way our kids view their bodies, others' bodies, sex, and romantic relationships. And it often leads to addiction and depression for girls and boys. And porn is also a grooming tool. It is used by predators to desensitize and instruct and even entice children into abusive behavior. And it also creates silence that's based on shame and secrets. So as adults, it's our responsibility to do our best to prevent our kids from seeing the inappropriate content. And we have filters and technology and so many even products you can buy now that help create that safe space. But we also have to prepare for when our kids do see it, or when a friend offers to show it to them. So we need to talk to our kids about the harm that it causes, how it shapes the brain, how it's hard to get those images out, even when we don't want to see them anymore, again, in our heads, how it can be addicting, leaving us feeling wanting more, or that those things that satisfied before no longer make us happy. And we need to talk about the real harm that's caused by the person involved, that there's a real person on the other side of the screen, and they may be hurt physically or emotionally. They may not want to be doing what they're doing. They could be a victim. And we also need to tell our kids, talk to them about the fact that it's normal to be curious. It's the fact that they have a physical, natural response to what they see is totally normal, but it doesn't mean they should keep looking. So what they do when they see it is they close their eyes, they turn it off, they step away, and they come tell their one of the 5 trusted adults, and we help them together. And kids need to know that they will not get in trouble for accidentally seeing pornography or even choosing to see it, but then seeking help from their trusted adult when they need it. So I'm going to stop there, but I basically want to, for this section, just remind us that empowering our kids is primarily about open communication and connection, and it's an ongoing conversation that evolves from birth to through childhood to adulthood. And we need to be continually talking about it, modeling, and practicing protective behavior. And ultimately, our children need to know that they have infinite worth and are deeply loved. And if anyone ever tries to treat them as if it isn't so, we want them to recognize it and reject it. And that is a hard lesson. I think we as adults are still learning, but it is our task as parents.
Thank you so much, Ruthie. Awkward, uncomfortable, all of those things. I had to reach for some tissues. Thank you. Wow. Now we're going to move on to another mom, Alicia.
Well, that was amazing, Ruthie. Thank you so much. Really impressive presentation. I really appreciate it. Oh gosh, my screen moved. Hold on. No, hold on. Sorry about that. Let's pull it back up. I apologize. Okay, so I'm going to be talking about resilience. And so as my PowerPoint comes back up, that's what my focus of this panel is going to be. And I'm honored to be a part of it, to be, in conjunction with Brian and Ruthie here. So thank you guys for allowing me to do that. Okay, now I think we've got it. Okay, all right. So resilience. The best defense against human trafficking are healthy families and strong communities. I agree with this 100%. If you were in my previous workshop, you heard some of this material. And if you weren't, then I would encourage you to go back and look more into detail about resiliency and how we can really develop that in our kids and our youth. I'm going to be uploading lots of resources there for your knowledge since we're really running out of time here, but we have to begin in the home. This is the key to developing healthy kids and future adults who will value human life and fight to end the injustice of human trafficking, or will continue the cycle of devaluing human life and seeing humans as expendable. We want to end that. right? So here are some hopefully, tangible ways that you can begin to build resilience or beef up maybe the resilience in the kids that are in your home or that you may be engaging with. So how do we as parents, as teachers, as community members, faith leaders, begin to really take charge of developing more resilience? It starts again in the home with some of these basic elements. But no matter who you are in that child's life, you can potentially engage in some of these. So number one, you've got spending one-on-one time. That uninterrupted time with a child can make the world of difference. Even if it's just 10 minutes a day, spending quality time really focused in on them, which means putting your phone down, right? Getting off of social media, whatever it might be, turning off the TV and really focusing in on them. I think that definitely is a key here. So put your phone down. But I'm guilty of this. We all are as parents. It's hard to juggle, work, life, managing kids, all of the above, social life, it's a juggling act. But anyways, we also want to encourage healthy risk taking for our kids. We don't want to be the fixer or the helicopter parent. We want to encourage them to learn how to problem solve on their own, how to deal with situations as they came up. We heard Ruthie talking about some great techniques and ideas of how to engage our kids and empower them so that they can manage problems as they come up on their own as well. So again, just encouraging those key elements within our family dynamics, within our homes to build that resilient whole person, that we want our children to be. So this ultimately leads to children learning how to problem solve, how to think, think about when we didn't have smartphones, right? How did we get around? How did we figure out what needed to happen? We have a different set of skills that kids have to learn these days. So really incorporating that in your parenting, in your working with children. Okay. So labeling emotions, this is another element that we've got to model for our kids. We've got to demonstrate how to have healthy coping skills, how to handle anger or frustration appropriately versus flying off the handle or, something to that respect. And embrace our mistakes, right? We're all going to make mistakes. We're human beings. No one is perfect. And so we have to show our kids, again, modeling how to embrace those mistakes, which ultimately builds that resilience so that we can pivot from that. We can grow from that experience. One of the things that I mentioned in the breakout was, really being optimistic and identifying what we're listening to in the home, identifying how much news we're taking in, how much TV is happening in the home. A lot of that's negativity. And so I just want to encourage you kind of analyze, what does that look like in your home environment? Again, model. I cannot stress that enough. And get outside, do some fun things. Kids thrive in new experiences, in consistency, but also in physical activity, experiencing the outdoors. So helpful. And we want to develop a growth mindset. So this is a chance to learn and grow. Instead of looking at our failures as permanent or negative, you can use it as a turning point, like I said, to pivot or a way to solve new problems. We are continually working towards our best selves if we have this mindset. And isn't that what we all want for our kids? We want them to be their best selves or to strive to be that. And ultimately, that's going to create a healthier environment, a healthier community, and overall healthier world, right? So all of those building blocks will hopefully develop a well-rounded, healthy kiddo who will have empathy, have respect for human life, value the dignity of each individual. And this is where prevention starts, right? This is prevention. This creates healthy families, which create, like I said, healthy communities and a safe world for our kids to grow up in, and a safe world where people have access and ability to avoid pitfalls of traffickers, and options in their life. We have to start earlier and younger than 7th grade or 9th grade sex education. We have to begin in those early years, like Ruthie mentioned, about teaching about body safety and body information. How do we begin to change the tide here? Again, going back to prevention, going back to family units, and developing some of these core elements from the very beginning. So that's where I think prevention is really beginning, and we need to start in the home from the time mom is really pregnant with that baby, every step of the way. So one free resource that I just encourage every time I give a presentation is NetSmarts. It's a wonderful resource. NetSmartsKids.org, sorry. Great free resource for parents, teachers, community members, you name it. Wonderful, thank you. And if you're talking, are we running out of time, Sandy?
No, I thought you were handing it off to me. Go for it.
Just this is my last slide, teaching about consent. If you've got older kids in the home, this is a great way to talk about consent in a maybe not so awkward way that might be helpful and encouraging for everybody. Cup of tea. And that is it. I'm going to hand it off to Bryn. Thank you.
All right, Brian, you are up.
Thank you. I'm just going to share screen. All right, so I completely agree with both presenters on all the ways that we can really help our children during these times. And my focus really is going to be coming from the legal standpoint, from that of a prosecutor. I want us to really focus on this idea that with all the things that are going on with Zoom, with being at home, technology is playing a really big role in the lives of our children and all of us, and that's not going away anytime soon. And with that said, I just want to make it very clear for all of us that technology has made the potential for human trafficking even closer than ever before. I mean, it's not hard for all of us. You know, we've been educated enough in human trafficking to know that, look, it could be happening at the hotel that I've stayed at with my family on my way to Disneyland. We are not too, we're now aware that, look, those massage parlors that I'm seeing near my house or on my way home, or in those industrial areas, there's human trafficking likely going on in there. We've even come to learn that, look, in those nice high-rise apartments in that very nice city, there could be human trafficking going on there. But have you thought, with the advent and the proliferation of technology, how accessible it is to us that it could be happening right from your very own home? I mean, that's a shock to me as a parent, but I can tell you from the law enforcement side, seeing cases come and go and reading the reports and finding what actually happens is, yes, that is something for us to be aware of. There was a survey done in 2016. The results were published in 2018 through Thorn. They surveyed 260 survivors of human trafficking across 14 states and 26 human trafficking organizations that assisted them. And out of those 260, they said 1 in 6 were trafficked under the age of 12. 75% of those who came into the life after 2004 or later were advertised online. I mean, that's a staggering number. The majority are being sold online. And one of the things to line up with what Ruthie and Alicia are talking about is this concept of grooming. I agree that yes, you're most likely going to get trafficked by somebody you know, but you didn't always know them, is my pitch to parents and educators out there. Your kids didn't always know the person that ends up trafficking them. There's a grooming process that occurs with somebody that started as a stranger and then became someone close, someone trusted, someone who the trafficker had no problems getting the child to take that next step of, well, if you love me, if you trust me, you will send me these naked pictures. If you trust me, if you love me, you will have sex with somebody else for money. 42% of those surveyed said that the trafficker gained their trust within a month of meeting them. 28% said it was about 4 months. So what does that tell us? The grooming process for human trafficking happens very quickly. And if you think about how much time our children are spending online or how much access they have to devices, do you know who they're talking to if they have unfettered access to their devices? If they say, I'm talking to a friend of a friend, I want you to be wary of that. If it's a friend of a friend on social media, a friend of a friend on a gaming network. Why? Because as this survey has shown, about 61% of the females or trafficked people talked about, 61% of them were asked to recruit another girl. And they talked about how their traffickers, 71% had more than one victim. Recruiting is the key. No one likes multi-level marketing, but in the world of human trafficking, it's all about recruiting. So a friend of a friend might be the entryway to introduce your child to the trafficker. A friend of the friend on social media might be the link to the human trafficker. A friend of a friend on a gaming network might be the link to child pornography and later on human trafficking. I want to ask, do these things look familiar to you? Do these, when I say things, because before I learned about this, I had no idea, well, what are these icons? Have you seen these on the devices of your children? Does your child have a smartphone, a tablet? Do you know what these are? Do you know what they do? Do you know what world they connect your children to? No one here would have a hard time saying, I would never let my child talk to a stranger. I would never let my child take candy from a stranger. I would never let my child be out and about in the park in the middle of the night. But if they have access to any of these things, unfettered, after 9 o'clock, at all times of the day, your child has access to a whole world that they never had access to before, a whole world that you and I didn't grow up in, where we didn't have to worry much when mom said, hey, I'll be back at 5 o'clock. It's like, how far can I go? Now the reach is virtually limitless for your children and my children. With human trafficking being now, as at least the California definition, it's to cause, induce, persuade, or tempt someone to engage in commercial sex. Think about that. That definition broadens how far it is that somebody can try to traffic our children. We know firsthand from a case that we had here in Orange County with the Human Trafficking Task Force of a guy by the name of Ariel Guizar. He met his victims through social media. We prosecuted him down here. He had so many victims. And on top of that, he was being prosecuted federally because he also had federal cases going on. With the permission of one of the victims, she wanted to speak out and speak against this to warn parents of the danger of social media and technology as far as recruitment. I want you to hear her words.
For the first time in years, Bianca says things are looking up. She escaped from a man in early February who she says pimped her out for years. Police arrested him days later. His name is Ariel Guizar. but he's known on social media as Shy Boy.
Do you call him Shy Boy or do you
I call him Shy.
You call him Shy?
Yeah, that's what everybody really calls him. Like they know him by Shy.
The teen tells us she met Weezar on Instagram when she was just 15 years old.
I came across his tattooing page on Instagram and saw he had a lot of followers and I liked his tattoos, so I would like his pictures, and then he started liking mine and he would comment on my pictures and we exchanged numbers.
Unhappy at home and after years of being in and out of the court system, she ran away, agreeing to meet up with the then 33-year-old man, thinking they would have a relationship. I asked her when it all changed.
He would have sex with other girls like in front of me and stuff like that. So I was just like, okay, like it's not like how I thought, but I don't know. And then that's when he had his friends go to the hotel room and like have them like basically do whatever they wanted with me. And when I told him about it, he didn't care.
It was that same day in a motel in San Jose when she says she first started prostituting for him.
The first time I worked for him, I only had probably like about like 5 to like 8 guys a day.
Like the assistance of an attorney, Mr. Weezar?
Weezar, seen here in court, is charged with pimping a minor, pandering, forcible rape, along with felony drug and weapons charges. In response to questions about his charges, public defender Melanie Bartholomew gave us a no comment. Police say Weezar advertised Bianca and other girls on Backpage.com and his social media accounts.
I'll be posting videos soon.
We found posts on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and Snapchat. Bianca tells us he posted a video of her with a client. She tried to leave, and he forced her to stay.
So I told me that if I had anybody try to pick me up, that he would kill them before they took off with me. When I started working for him again, it was up to like more than 20 guys a day, because he would tell us, you guys have to make $1,000 and then you guys could go to sleep.
When asked why she agreed to do this interview, Bianca says she's worried for other girls like her.
Because if a guy loved you, he wouldn't have you having sex with other guys for money. He would be the one that wants to be your only one.
And that's the message that we have for our children. As we're teaching them about their body, we also have to let them know about relationships, because what we're finding in the human trafficking realm, I agree with Ruthie, it's not primarily somebody getting kidnapped off the street. It's somebody that they know that's letting them, as a minor, make a free choice to do this because they want to do it, that they love to do it. They do it for the love of this other person that's brainwashed and groomed them. Interestingly enough, in that survey of the 260 survivors of human trafficking, only a quarter of them were involved in any type of prosecution against the trafficker, and 88% of them said they did not want to be involved in any type of prosecution. Whether that's out of fear, love, loyalty, or respect, it's very clear that this connection that is made through relationship, grooming, technology is very hard to break once it's been made. So like I said, would you let your child develop a relationship with an adult stranger in real life? I anticipate the answer is no. It would never be the case for me. Yeah, we've had that happen, and it's still happening. As of February 2nd, 2021, we just had a press release out of the Orange County Human Trafficking Task Force, Anaheim Police Department, in conjunction with our office, for a teenage girl who was essentially trafficked, whether as a being bought or being sold by 5 different men, all from one dating site. So how do we help everyone? Obviously, it's awareness. Prevention, you got the steps from Ruthie and Alicia. Some I'd like to also throw out there is your privacy settings for your children. What are they? Because if they're open, that means someone like Weezar can look up and see whether or not he wants to recruit or have his girls become friends with your daughter or your son to recruit them. Gaming, same thing. Who are they allowed to be connected to? Who are they able to talk to? Can the whole world have access to your children? Second, do you confiscate devices? Do you say, hey, at 9 o'clock, nothing good ever happens? I'll take that phone, I'll take that charger. You want to charge it, you want to use it, come to my room. Some things to think about of practical ways to prevent. And as far as action, if you suspect it's happening or it's happening to someone you know or a child, you know, one of the things they all say is, no one ever asked me, are you okay? Especially on the education side. Are you okay? If you come across stuff, don't delete it, save and document it, and then please report it. Emergencies, call 911. And on top of that, you have the National Human Trafficking Hotline. It's 24/7, toll free, confidential to a certain extent, 200 plus languages. You can call, text, or live chat online. And I'll tell you another thing, with the last thing I'll end with is the victims that were surveyed, so many said they had no idea of a way to get help. And one of the things they said is, having seen it somewhere posted online or through social media, or if a teacher had just kind of shared this information with us, might have made a difference. So with that, this is all on all of us to help end this. And thank you for listening.
Wow. Okay, we've got questions. So let's bring all the panelists back on stage. Don't you love this Zoom format? I'm starting to really enjoy this. So let's get some Q&A going. What resources, I think I'm going to send this one to Ruthie, can parents and teachers use to protect their kids without costing a lot of money? Unmute for Ruthie. Okay, do you have sound? Apparently you don't have sound. Oh, there we go.
That's the number one rule of being on Zoom, right? So anyway, I wanted to show, these are some pictures of books that I love for littles, right? So again, it's beginning with literally from the time they can talk. And I snuck and looked that there was a question about, when do we talk to our kids? You talk to them from the beginning, ongoing, at every life stage. And in many ways, we respond to the questions they have, right? We introduce the conversation, but we also honestly answer whenever they have questions. And what I've learned is you give as much information as the kid seems to be satisfied with. So if they ask where babies come from, you explain it. You don't have to go into everything about it. Usually you give a simple answer. They're like, oh, okay. So these books are really helpful. I've got a bunch here, literally in person with me too. The great website that I love for, again, these resources for beginning the conversation, because I just think literature is so helpful. Sometimes introduces a topic that it's not me talking to you, but about the issue. This Some Secrets Should Never Be Kept is a story of a little boy being sexually abused. And so it's a great way to have a conversation without it being necessarily pointed at someone. The God Made All of Me is a book that is a faith-based response and really bringing in how those of us with a Christian worldview and kind of that understanding of creation and the celebration of what God created in creating us in our beautiful bodies. But the books I pulled a lot from are Good Pictures, Bad Pictures for Introducing Pornography Conversations. They have a junior version. And then My Body, it's What I Say Goes, and the No Means No are both great for that kind of building the beginning conversations. And I'm trying to advance my slide to this one. A lot of these come from e2epublishing.info, and the mamabeareffect.org is another website. It's actually based out of Australia, but they have so many great resources, including how to have the conversation about body safety, but also sexuality and where babies come from, all of that. It's a really great, those are all great resources for empowering parents to empower kids.
Okay, and you already mentioned, both of you, the netsmarts.org, and they have an anti-porn prevention video that's appropriate for as young as 7 years old called It's Okay to Tell. Alicia, can you tell us what the GritX resource is that you posted?
So that is just a wonderful resource. I might be able to share my screen real quick and show it.
We're just going to do Q&A right now.
Okay.
No more technology.
So it's just a wonderful resource with lots of self-care techniques, guidance for youth who are in this virtual world. needing some support, needing some resources. It was developed by UCSF professors, and I just highly encourage you to check it out.
Okay, for Brian now, I'm kind of combining a couple questions. What should a parent do if someone tries to groom their child? And then there was a question about, with distance learning, students are learning to trust adults online because their teacher is online. So Brian, can you address that conundrum?
Definitely. I mean, if parents, you come across something, please do not delete it if you plan on reporting it at all. The reason for that is because we've found that the child might tell you, because of shame and embarrassment, it only happened one time. I've only known this person for a month. And then when we've come in on the law enforcement end and done our due diligence, we find that this has been going on for years and parents had no idea. So it really helps us on the law enforcement end. Do not delete, screenshot, give us whatever evidence, and then let us take it from there. On our end, we do everything to protect privacy as far as prosecution. As far as trusting adults online, totally get it. But I think with the, hey, this is a teacher, but still all the things that Ruthie and Alicia talked about always apply as to whether it's I tell my kids, if it's your grandparents, if it's me, anyone, if they make you feel uncomfortable in any way, you tell someone. You either tell mom, you tell me, even if it's the doctor. So removing the shame factor and helping them be able to share whenever they feel uncomfortable is key, regardless of who it is.
And another aspect of this is, I remember doing law enforcement presentations with officers who demonstrated how they had put a Facebook post of themselves, that they had themselves put up a Facebook post, and they looked like a 16-year-old girl. So, Brian, can you speak to that?
Yeah, that's a huge thing. They're basically, you don't know who's on the other end. Like, you absolutely have no idea until it's time to meet this person. And by then it's too late because you've already developed trust. You've developed a relationship. As you all know, catfishing is a thing, but when it's a bad actor on the other end who's not just looking for romance, you have to watch out. And so that's why I'm a big fan of, if you don't know this person in person, they're not on my friend list. Your child, I don't care how popular they are, should not have over 1,000 friends. So something to think about. I'm a big fan of private, turn off comments. Nobody's going to connect with you unless I know you in person.
One of the scenarios that Live to Free clubs do with students, because we know peer-to-peer is better prevention than adult to child when you're talking about adolescence. And so they do a scenario where your best friend is approached by someone online, and then what are you going to do to keep your friends safe? Go to the Live to Free exhibit if you're more interested in that. We've got more questions coming in. So about the safety team, Ruthie, what if someone on the team is the predator? And or the number one go-to adult is the predator?
Yeah, that's hard. It reminds me of a hero of mine, Andrea Dworkin, a radical feminist, talks about incest being the breeding ground for prostitution. And unfortunately, we know that so many children, they get set up for these experiences of compounding trauma because those safe people are not protecting them, right? But I want to go back to, we said five people, right? The choices we give our kids, those five, we ask them, who do you feel safe with? Who makes you feel comfortable and protected? And hopefully someone in that five is safe. Now, we ask kids to identify. I think it's smart to have someone outside of the family unit because oftentimes families protect and cover shame and secrets. But again, that's how hopefully the people that are listening are those safe adults. We want to be in other children's lives, become trusted, reliable adults that they know and trust and love, to break into those circles. I mean, it's hard, but we want to give kids options. And that again comes to that place of adults' responsibility of creating protective safety nets around kids. So whether it's teachers, church members, social workers, we need to reach into those networks to make sure kids all have at least one trusted adult. And we, as we teach our kids, tell them, if someone doesn't believe you or doesn't listen or doesn't do enough, you go to the next one, you go to the next one, you go to the next one. Because statistically, adults don't believe children, and we need to change that.
Okay, Brian, I'm going to give you a really big job here at the end. We've introduced people to the term CSEC, but we need to also address the explosion of child sexual abuse images. What do we do if we see something? FBI is very involved in this. We'll let you take it from there.
I would report it. So if you do see something, report it in whatever platform, because they have ways to track things. I know the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children tracks and report things, and all those things that they run across ultimately get reported to law enforcement. So whether the feds take it or we take it on the local level, we can't do anything until somebody reports it. So take note of it, find out where it is, report it, and then we can make something happen. But until it's reported, we don't know. We don't know what we don't know.
Okay, that's good. Anybody else have a comment about that? Ruthie.
Well, with our college students, we talk about the importance of youth knowing and not creating their own pornographic image, child abuse images. So we need to talk to our older kids about sexting, about, pictures of private parts is how you'd say to little kids, but the importance of, once it's out there, it's out there, you cannot retrieve it. If you take it and send it on, you actually may be contributing to child pornography. So we need to talk to our kids about the sexting, the pressures that they experience, and really give them the space to weigh the consequences, to think those through and make smart decisions.
All right. There's just so much. And you think about, we could talk about sextortion, all of those things. And for especially adolescents, they need to know how to report as well. Revenge porn is a thing, and it happens to kids, and they're so shamed that they don't want to tell anybody. And so letting them know that even your 16-year-old is inside, that little kid needs to know it's safe to tell somebody that somebody did this to my picture, put my head on this image. And so education, 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 communication, communication. Wow. So I've seen several people, you want to just like glom on and take everything you possibly can from all three of these folks. This is the wonderful thing about Whova. You can reach out to them individually on Whova. If you didn't download Whova, try to do that. If you can't and you want to follow up with one of our speakers, please email gcwj@vanguard.edu. And I saw that one more question came in. What are we to do to help children and others with legislation like AB 145? Is that something anybody here feels prepared to speak to? I am not an expert on that. All right, and the last question is from one of our students in the class. Is there a way or resource to repost on social media to raise awareness about grooming? Anybody have some ideas about that?
I think there's so many. Ruthie, I see you shaking your head. I just want to mention A21 campaign has some really great videos that kind of show the whole process very quickly for youth. I love it. That's my recommendation.
All right. So we're going to put the YouTube video that we didn't show during Alicia's. We're going to put that on Whova, and stay tuned. Go take your 15-minute break and come back for the closing plenary. Okay, bye.
Hi.